The 1960s were a turning point for motorcycling. British twins still dominated headlines, Italian singles chased racing glory, and Japan was quietly preparing to upend everything with speed, reliability, and mass production. But not every legend was obvious at first glance. Some bikes hid their brilliance behind modest looks or small displacements. Others were overshadowed by flashier models. Today, these sleepers are remembered not for their fame at launch, but for the way they surprised riders and shaped the future. Let's kick off our countdown with the bike that opened the door for Honda to be taken seriously as a performance brand. Our number 15 pick is the Honda CB77 Superhawk, a modest-looking 305 twin that shocked the British establishment. At the dawn of the 1960s, Japanese motorcycles were often dismissed as cheap imports fine for commuting perhaps, but no match for British iron. The Honda CB77 Superhawk was the bike that shattered that stereotype. Outwardly modest, it packed a 305cc parallel twin producing 28 horsepower, capable of revving to an astonishing 9,000 revolutions per minute, unheard of for a middleweight at the time. Its top speed of just under 100 miles per hour made it a genuine rival to machines twice its displacement. What set the CB77 apart was its balance of performance and reliability. Where many British twins leaked oil and required constant maintenance, the Honda was smooth, durable, and easy to live with. American riders discovered they could ride the Hawk daily, then take it racing on weekends. Cultural cachet helped too. Steve McQueen, the king of cool, owned one, and photos of him with the Superhawk helped cement its image as more than a commuter. Tens of thousands were sold, so it's not rare in the strict sense. But today, pristine examples are highly collectible because they mark the moment Honda became a performance player. Restored CB77s often fetch $7,000, $10,000 at auction, a testament to their enduring appeal. By the mid-60s, Honda had shown the world it could play. Suzuki wanted to prove it could win. Enter number 14, the T20 Super 6. A 250 with one gear more than anyone expected. The Suzuki T20, known in the US as the X6 Hustler, was the bike that made motorcyclists take Suzuki seriously. At a glance, it seemed like just another small Japanese twin, a 247cc air-cooled, two-stroke parallel twin. But then riders discovered its secret weapon, a 6-speed gearbox, the first ever on a production motorcycle of that size. The effect was transformative. With 29 horsepower on tap, the T20 could rev freely and stay in its power band across every gear. Quarter-mile times dipped below 15 seconds, and top speed pushed to 95-100 miles per hour, figures that embarrassed many British 500 seconds of the era. Suddenly, riders on a humble 250 were overtaking Triumphs and BSAs that looked twice as serious. The T20 was also a cultural export success. Marketed aggressively in the US, it became a favorite among young riders who wanted cutting-edge engineering at an affordable price. Suzuki even entered the T20 into production racing, where its speed proved it wasn't just a gimmick. Gears weren't the only battlefield. Yamaha found its advantage not in speed, but in elegance. And at number 13, the YDS-3 introduced a technology that made two-strokes civilized. In the 1960s, two-strokes were quick but notoriously messy. Riders had to pre-mix oil with gasoline, often making mistakes that led to fouled plugs, smoke, or even engine seizures. Yamaha rewrote the script with the YDS-3, introducing its pioneering auto-lube oil injection system. For the first time, riders could simply fill the gas tank like a 4-stroke and ride away, the bike handling the lubrication automatically. Under the skin, the YDS-3 carried a 246cc two-stroke parallel twin, producing 24 horsepower. Top speed hovered around 90 miles per hour, but performance wasn't its only trick. The Autolube system made the YDS-3 practical, reliable, and far cleaner than its peers. It transformed two-strokes from temperamental racers into bikes everyday riders could trust. The YDS-3's influence was enormous. It paved the way for Yamaha's later domination of racing, from GP circuits to motocross, by proving oil injection could handle high-revving engines without compromising longevity. Today, the YDS-3 is remembered not only for its smooth ride, but as the start of a lineage that led directly to iconic Yamaha performance bikes. But civilized wasn't Kawasaki's style. Number 12. The A1 Samurai was small, sharp, and unapologetically aggressive. Before Kawasaki became famous for fire-breathing triples like the Mach 3, it tested the waters with the A1 Samurai 250. On the surface, it looked ordinary. a small Japanese twin in a simple frame. But the Samurai's heart was anything but ordinary. It used a 247cc rotary valve two-stroke twin that pumped out an impressive 31 horsepower, giving it a top speed of around 100 miles per hour. In the mid-1960s, that was astonishing for a quarter-liter motorcycle. The Samurai could outpace many 350 seconds and keep up with some British 500 seconds, shocking riders who assumed it was just another commuter. Its 6-speed gearbox kept the engine singing, and the rotary valve design gave it crisp throttle response. More importantly, the Samurai foreshadowed Kawasaki's future. Its aggressive tuning and surprising performance reflected the DNA that would later produce the legendary Mach series. The Samurai showed Kawasaki wasn't interested in simply keeping up, it wanted to leap ahead. And so we arrive at number 11, the BSA Spitfire. A classically styled British twin that looked polite on the outside but was, in fact, one of the fastest production motorcycles of its era. By the mid-1960s, BSA was fighting to prove it could still compete in the high-performance game. The result was the Spitfire Mach 2 and Mach 2, two parallel twins that look like typical British bikes but pack serious speed. Powered by a 654cc OHV twin delivering 54 horsepower, the Spitfire could reach 120 miles per hour faster than Triumph's Bonneville and equal to some of Norton's best. The Spitfire wasn't just quick in a straight line. With twin-amal carburetors and a lightweight frame, it handled well for its era. Yet despite its capabilities, it never gained the same cultural spotlight as the Bonneville. Overshadowed by its cousin, the Spitfire became something of a hidden gem. Today, that underdog status makes it a sleeper collector's bike. Production numbers were lower than Triumph's, and survivors are fewer, especially in original condition. At auction, Spitfires can range from $10,000, $15,000, depending on restoration quality, offering collectors a slice of authentic 1960s British superbike performance without paying Bonneville premiums. Big power wasn't the only way forward. Number 10. The Honda CB92 Bentley showed that even 125cc could be dressed for sport and taken seriously. By the early 1960s, Honda was already proving that small displacement didn't mean small performance. Enter the Honda CB92 Bentley Supersport, a bike that looked almost too polite to be taken seriously. With a displacement of just 124cc, many dismissed it as a commuter toy. But when they heard it scream, they realized Honda had pulled off something remarkable. The CB92 was powered by a 124cc air-cooled, overhead cam parallel twin, making around 15 horsepower at nearly 10,000 revolutions per minute. Its featherweight design meant it could reach 70 miles per hour, a shocking figure for its size. Even more impressive, it came with features usually reserved for larger motorcycles: a tachometer, sporty twin leading shoe front brakes, and stylish, racer-like touches. The Bentley was marketed heavily in Asia and Europe, but fewer made it to the US, which makes them especially collectible today. While it wasn't a giant killer, the CB92 was a statement. Honda could take even a tiny displacement and turn it into a proper sports bike. For many riders, it was their first taste of high-revving Japanese engineering, a bite-sized revolution that previewed Honda's racing ambition. Today, clean CB92s are rare and highly sought after, often selling for $8,000, $12,000 at auctions. But Honda's ambitions didn't stop at small road bikes. Our number 9. The CR110 Cub Racing. A machine so tiny it looked like a toy, yet it screamed like a Grand Prix weapon. When you first see the Honda CR110, it's hard not to smile. At just 50cc, it looks like a child's machine, a miniature racer with a fragile presence. But this bike was deadly serious. Built as a production racer, the CR110 was designed to give privateers access to Honda's GP-winning technology. The numbers were astonishing. Its single-cylinder DOHC 4-stroke engine made 8 horsepower at a stratospheric 14,000 revolutions per minute. That allowed it to hit speeds of 70 miles per hour from an engine the size of a moped. It had a 9-speed gearbox to keep that tiny piston buzzing, and it quickly earned a reputation for being nearly indestructible at high revs. In racing, the CR110 punched far above its weight. At club events across Europe and Asia, these little Hondas embarrassed larger machines by simply never slowing down. They were lightweight, precise, and reliable traits that turned them into legends among grassroots racers. Only a few hundred were built, and many were raced to destruction. Surviving examples are vanishingly rare, with original machines fetching $30,000, $40,000 today. More than just a collector's item, the CR110 is remembered as proof that Honda's engineering mastery extended to even the tiniest displacements. But not all racing brilliance came in such tiny packages. Our number 8 pick, the Aermacchi All'Adoro, was a larger Italian single that looked plain but earned its glory on GP tracks across Europe. Italy's Aermacchi is often remembered for its scooters and small road bikes, but in the 1960s it produced one of the finest racing singles of the decade, the All'Adoro Golden Wing. Available in 250cc and later 350cc versions, the All'Adoro was a purpose-built road racer that could fool the untrained eye. Outwardly, it looked like a bare-bones commuter bike, but in the hands of skilled riders, it was a GP winner. The All'Adoro 250 featured an air-cooled 4-stroke single with DOHC, producing around 35 horsepower at 10,000 revolutions per minute. Top speed reached nearly 120 miles per hour, remarkable for a single-cylinder machine. It was light, nimble, and perfectly suited for the tight, technical tracks of European racing. Though Aermacchi was a small manufacturer, its racing program punched far above its weight. Riders like Renzo Pasolini took the All'Adoro into the spotlight, challenging giants like Honda and Yamaha in the GP 250 class. When Harley-Davidson acquired a stake in Aermacchi in the mid-60 seconds, these racers were rebranded as Harley-Davidson for international competition, adding another layer of intrigue to their legacy. Production numbers were small, and most bikes lived hard racing lives. Surviving All'Adoros are now rare collector's items, often commanding $25,000 or more depending on provenance. They stand as proof that sometimes the plainest looking machines can carry championship blood. From Italy, we head to another small manufacturer with big ambitions. Our number 7 pick, the Laverda 650, started out as a Honda lookalike, but under the surface, it was built like a tank. And today it's one of the rarest Italian twins of its time. The mid-1960s saw Italian company Laverda make a bold leap from small displacement singles into the world of big twins. Their first attempt was the Laverda 650, a motorcycle that many critics initially dismissed as a copy of Honda's CB77. And in a way, they were right. Laverda openly studied Honda's design. But what they built was no clone. The 650 was massively over-engineered, designed for durability and long-distance performance. Powered by a 650cc parallel twin producing around 55 horsepower, the Laverda 650 could reach 115 miles per hour. What made it unique was its construction. Every component from the crankshaft to the gearbox was built to higher tolerances than its Japanese or British rivals. It was heavy, yes, but it was also almost indestructible. Riders quickly discovered they could thrash a Laverda for hours at high speed, and it would just keep going. Only a few 650 seconds were built before Laverda shifted focus to the larger 750, which became their signature. That makes the 650 extremely rare today. Surviving examples can sell for $30,000 or more, with collectors valuing them as the foundation of Laverda's reputation. And with the Italians proving that strength could come in subtle packages, our number 6 pick returns us to Britain, where Velocette built a single that looked old-fashioned but would set endurance records that still echo today. Velocette was already known for its singles, but with the Thruxton, it created its most legendary machine. At first glance, the Thruxton looked like a throwback, a big, air-cooled single in an era when twins and triples were grabbing headlines. But under its traditional styling lay a motorcycle designed for endurance racing. The 499cc overhead cam single produced around 41 horsepower, enough to push the Thruxton to 115 miles per hour. It wasn't the outright fastest bike on the market, but what set it apart was its stamina. In 1961, a team of Velocette singles set a 24-hour endurance record at Montlhéry in France, averaging 100 miles per hour, a staggering feat that cemented the Thruxton's reputation. Velocette produced only about 1,100 Thruxtons, making them rare even when new. Many were raced, modified, or destroyed, which makes surviving examples especially prized today. Collectors regard them as the pinnacle of British single-cylinder engineering, a bike that combined durability, racing pedigree, and timeless style. And as we now approach the top 5 sleeper motorcycles, we'll look at our number 5 pick, Norton's P11. When American desert racing surged in popularity in the late 1960s, riders wanted bikes that could handle long stretches of sand, rocks, and brutal heat, but with the power to outgun rivals on open flats. Norton's answer was the P11, a motorcycle born of necessity and ingenuity. The P11 was a hybrid, Engineers took Norton's 750cc Atlas parallel twin and stuffed it into a lightweight matchless G85CS scrambler frame. The result was a motorcycle that looked like a stripped-down scrambler but packed 55 horsepower and a top speed of around 115 miles per hour. In the desert, it was a monster. American riders loved it, particularly in California and Nevada, where the P11 earned a reputation as the ultimate desert sled. Steve McQueen and other celebrity riders favored similar desert machines, and while the Triumph TR6 often got more attention, the P11 had roar muscle. Its torque-heavy engine gave it an edge when powering through sand washes and steep incline. Only around 2,500 were built, and many were thrashed to destruction in competition. Surviving examples are rare, and when they appear at auction, they can command $15,000, $20,000. Especially if they retain original scrambler equipment. If the Norton P11 was all about brute power in the dirt, our number 4 pick, the matchless G50 CSR, was its opposite. A road bike that secretly carried the DNA of a Grand Prix racer, the matchless G50 was already a legendary racing single, dominating tracks in the early 1960s. But what makes the G50 CSR so fascinating is how some of that race-bred technology quietly slipped onto the street. CSR stood for Competition Divided by Sports Divided by Road, and these bikes look like everyday British singles, but inside lurk the bones of a GP machine. The G50 CSR used a 500cc air-cooled single making around 50 horsepower, which was huge for a single-cylinder road bike of its era. Top speed exceeded 110 miles per hour, and handling was razor-sharp thanks to the featherbed-style frame. To the untrained eye, it looked like another British single. To anyone who twisted the throttle, it was clear this was something more. These bikes were rare because they were often built in small runs or modified by privateers who blended road-going matchless models with racing G50 parts. They blurred the line between racer and roadster, creating a kind of factory sleeper that few outside the racing world understood. Today, genuine G50 CSRs are extremely scarce. Their value lies not just in rarity, but in authenticity. They connect directly to one of the greatest racing singles of the 20th century. Collectors pay $40,000, $50,000 or more for verifiable examples, making them one of the crown jewels of British 1960s engineering. From a British single, we move to something no one expected from a tire company. Our number 3 pick, the Bridgestone 350 GTR. Looked like a commuter twin, but inside, it hid some of the most advanced two-stroke engineering of its era. Bridgestone is known worldwide for tires, not motorcycles. But in the late 1960s, the company built one of the most remarkable and underrated bikes of the decade, the 350 GTR. On the surface, it looked like a sensible Japanese commuter, but under the tank was a technological marvel that stunned anyone who rode it. The GTR's 345cc rotary valve two-stroke twin produced around 3740 horsepower, giving it a top speed of 105 miles per hour. The rotary valve system allowed precise fuel-air mixture control, making the engine smoother and more powerful than piston port rivals. It also came with a 6-speed gearbox, twin leading shoe brakes, and refined styling that hinted at its capability without screaming it. What made the Bridgestone 350 a true sleeper was its context. Nobody expected a tire company to produce a machine that could compete with Yamaha or Suzuki, but the GTR did exactly that. In fact, some test riders called it the best 350 twin on the market. Unfortunately, politics killed it. Under pressure from the Japanese Big Four, Bridgestone withdrew from motorcycle production in 1971, focusing solely on tires. Today, collectors consider the GTR one of the most desirable oddballs of the 1960s, with prices climbing into the $12,000, $18,000 range. It's proof that sometimes greatness comes from the most unexpected places. Now on to our number 2 pick, the Bridgestone 350 GTR. Looked like an everyday commuter, but under its skin was one of the most advanced 350 twins of the entire decade. When you think of Bridgestone, you think of tires. But in the late 1960s, this Japanese giant briefly turned its attention to motorcycles and produced one of the most shocking sleepers of the decade. The 350 GTR looked like a sensible little commuter twin, the kind of bike you'd expect to see parked outside an office. But once the engine fired, it revealed itself as one of the most advanced middleweights of its era. At its heart was a 345cc rotary valve two-stroke twin, producing around 3740 horsepower. That may not sound like much today, but in the late 60 seconds, it put the Bridgestone in the same league as Yamaha's and Suzuki's race-bred 350 seconds. It had a 6-speed gearbox, smooth delivery, and a top speed of 105 miles per hour. Riders who dismissed it as a tire company experiment quickly learned it could outrun bikes from established brands. The GTR's downfall wasn't performance, it was politics. The big four Japanese manufacturers Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, and Kawasaki pressured Bridgestone to withdraw, seeing the tire company as an unwelcome rival. By 1971, motorcycle production ended, leaving the 350 GTR as a short-lived legend. But if Bridgestone proved a tire company could build a world-class motorcycle, our number one pick, Triumph Bandit and BSA Fury, shows how close Britain came to saving itself. By the end of the 1960s, Britain's motorcycle industry was in crisis. Honda had released the CB350, Suzuki was flooding the market with quick two-strokes, and Kawasaki was preparing the brutal Mach 3. Triumph and BSA needed a savior, a modern bike that could match Japanese engineering. Their answer was the Triumph Bandit and its sister model, the BSA Fury. On the surface, they looked like ordinary British 350 twins, but inside they were revolutionary. The Bandit, divided by Fury, used a 349cc DOHC parallel twin, capable of 34 horsepower and speeds of around 100 miles per hour. The design was light, rev-happy, and far ahead of anything Britain had produced before. For once, the old guard seemed ready to fight back with a motorcycle that could compete on equal terms. But fate intervened. Financial collapse at BSA and Triumph meant the project was scrapped before full production. Only a handful of prototypes were ever completed. Estimates suggest fewer than 10 survive today. Some ended up in museums, others in private collections, but they never reached the showroom floor. That's why the Bandit and Fury stand as the ultimate sleeper motorcycles of the 1960s. They had the appearance of modest British twins, but they carried the engineering that could have changed history. Instead, they became symbols of what might have been the last roll of the dice for an industry that couldn't catch the Japanese wave. Today, they are six-figure collector's machines, almost mythical in their rarity. The bikes on this list may not have been the most famous of the 1960s, but they are among the most fascinating, and for collectors today, they are treasures that tell the deeper story of a golden age.